In the previous part, we saw that carbon does not simply circulate. Over long timescales, a significant portion of it is removed from the active system, locked away in rocks, sediments, and fossil reservoirs. This raises an important question. If carbon is gradually removed from circulation, what happens to life when that carbon becomes less available? Because carbon dioxide is not just part of the atmosphere. It is the entry point of carbon into the biosphere, and carbon is essential for life. Under certain levels, carbon dioxide availability can become a limiting factor. If we look at temperature over Earth's history, one thing becomes immediately clear. Climate has never been static. Over the past 65 million years, the planet has undergone a long-term cooling trend. Compared to much of that time, today's climate is relatively cool. But the most important feature is not the absolute temperature, it is the pattern of change. Climate does not shift smoothly. It moves in cycles, warming and cooling phases repeating over time. Something, however, changes around 34 million years ago. This is when large-scale glaciation begins in Antarctica, marking a fundamental shift in the climate system. From this point on, variability increases. If we zoom in further, over the past 5.3 million years, a more detailed pattern emerges. And in the last 1 million years, this variability intensifies even further. Glacial cycles deepen. Warm periods become shorter. Cold periods become more extreme. The system is not simply cooling. It is changing its behavior. This raises a key question. What drives this increasing variability? Over the past several 100,000 years, climate has been dominated by glacial-interglacial cycles. Temperature rises and falls, ice sheets expand and retreat, and carbon dioxide moves with them. Even on the peaks of these cycles, carbon dioxide concentration is around 280 ppm. Then something critical happens. Atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration keeps decreasing and drops to very low levels, often below 200 parts per million. As we saw in Part 7, photosynthesis can already be constrained even at around 280 ppm, particularly for C3 plants, which make up a large fraction of terrestrial vegetation. As carbon dioxide levels decline further, these constraints become more pronounced. Below about 200 ppm, photosynthesis in C3 plants becomes increasingly limited. At these levels, plant productivity declines significantly, and at even lower concentrations, many species struggle to survive. This is not theoretical. It is well established in plant physiology. When carbon dioxide becomes scarce, plants do not necessarily stop growing entirely, but their efficiency declines. Growth slows. Water use efficiency changes. Ecosystems begin to shift. At the same time, glacial conditions also bring lower temperatures, reduced precipitation in many regions, expanding ice sheets, and changing atmospheric circulation. Together, these factors reshape the biosphere. Forests retreat. Grasslands and deserts expand. Some regions become increasingly sparse. To better understand these changes, we can zoom in on the last glacial cycle, the past 120,000 years. Here, regional data provides a more detailed view. Pollen records and sediment cores show that vegetation responds strongly to climate variability. This graph shows the proportion of woody vegetation in southern Australia, reconstructed from pollen data extracted near Kangaroo Island. Here, pollen data indicates that its woody vegetation declines dramatically around 65,000 years ago and remains sparse until 23,000 years ago. Although vegetation fluctuates during this time, it becomes very limited at certain times. For Western North America, a region that is also relatively dry today, a larger dataset is available. While the most arid regions are again underrepresented, the overall pattern is consistent. The reconstructions based on large datasets show similar reductions of woody vegetation around 70, 62, and 52,000 years ago. In North Africa, humidity reconstructions reveal alternating wet and dry periods closely tied to vegetation dynamics. However, between around 70 and 30,000 years ago, the Sahara is extremely dry. There are other dry periods around 22, 75, and 88,000 years ago. When we compare these regional changes with atmospheric carbon dioxide levels, a consistent pattern appears. Periods of reduced vegetation often coincide with relatively low carbon dioxide concentrations. Carbon dioxide is not the only reason. Water availability, temperature, and seasonal variability all play critical roles, but they are all connected. Together, these factors suggest something important. When ecosystems are already under stress, declining carbon dioxide can further limit their productivity. Around 21,000 years ago, during the last glacial maximum, ice sheets reached their maximum extent, global temperatures were significantly lower. Atmospheric carbon dioxide dropped to around 180 ppm. This combination placed strong constraints on ecosystems worldwide. Vegetation cover declined, forests retreated. Cold and dry environments expanded. This was not caused by carbon dioxide alone. It was the result of a combined system state: temperature, ice, water availability, and atmospheric composition acting together. Within this broader system, carbon dioxide plays a specific role. It does not act alone, but it influences the efficiency of photosynthesis. At very low concentrations, it can constrain plant productivity, especially in already stressed environments. During the glacial periods, the concentration of carbon dioxide dropped to around 180 ppm, which probably limited ecosystem productivity. At the same time, evidence shows that vegetation changes can also influence climate. We saw in Part 5 and Part 6 that vegetation plays a major role in climate change. In most cases, vegetation changes in temperature show similar trends. Vegetation changes can contribute to climate feedbacks through effects on evapotranspiration, surface energy balance, and atmospheric moisture transport. These large temperature swings became more pronounced during the last 1 million years, a period when carbon dioxide levels were also relatively low compared to earlier geological times. As detailed in Part 7, Zhu and his colleagues found that today's increased carbon dioxide concentration led to the global greening of Earth. The reconstruction made by Huntley and his colleagues shows that these glacial cycles of the last era can be interpreted as large-scale expansions and contractions of vegetation. As carbon dioxide levels decline, vegetation of vulnerable regions becomes sparse one after another until the majority of Earth's biosphere is significantly reduced. Then carbon dioxide levels rise again during transitions into interglacial periods. Vegetation starts spreading, climate warms, and the whole cycle repeats over and over again. Carbon dioxide may not be the sole driver, but based on the evidence, it is likely a major contributor, and it can have serious consequences. During the late Pleistocene, many large animal species disappeared, including mammoths and saber-toothed tigers. This remains one of the most studied extinction events. Several factors are widely considered: rapid climate change, habitat shifts, human activity, and ecosystem restructuring. Carbon dioxide availability is much less frequently discussed as a contributing factor. Productive vegetation depends on carbon dioxide levels. If concentration drops below certain levels, vegetation can retreat. Large herbivores depend on stable and productive vegetation. When ecosystems weaken, they are among the first to be affected. Predators depend on them. So changes at the base of the system propagate upward until a significant portion of the ecosystem is affected. What emerges is not a simple cause and effect chain, but a system. Climate and vegetation affect one another. Vegetation and ecosystems also influence one another, but they both rely on carbon cycling. And carbon dioxide both responds to and feeds back into this system. This perspective changes how we think about carbon dioxide. It is not only a greenhouse gas. It is also part of the system that supports life. If its concentration drops too low, it has serious consequences. Carbon dioxide concentrations were much higher in the past and life flourished. Over very long geological timescales, continued carbon sequestration could contribute to declining atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. In extreme scenarios, this could place constraints on biological productivity. What we see is not a simple sequence of cause and effect, but a cascade of changes moving through the Earth system and beyond. We saw that during glacial cycles, carbon dioxide concentration keeps decreasing slowly, then it increases relatively fast, and these repeat over and over again. This raises deeper questions. What could trigger these changes? What could possibly cause the relatively fast jumps in global temperature after the slow cooling periods? Why does carbon dioxide concentration jump suddenly after a slow decline? In the next part, we will explore glacial-interglacial cycles further, while strictly remaining within the boundaries of science and the laws of nature. We will step beyond Earth into space to examine astronomical processes that possibly shape our planet's climate. If you liked this part, don't forget to share the video so others may also enjoy it. Also remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part and other exciting videos released in the future.